Okay. The first practical thing that I would like you to be aware of is that result from this course entitled Simulation of a Mechatronic Machine, they've been submitted to Student Affairs Office and they should be available this time. But what I learned during the weekend was that there was at least one occasion that something went wrong and we made a mistake in the math and we provided the lower grade than we should. Honestly, I don't know where that actually came, so it's very much unclear to me. But seems that some kind of there was a bit of a problem in that formula. So now, what I will do a little later today, or if not today, then tomorrow morning at latest, I will submit the details, like how your how is the formula to be used in order to get your final grade. So please log into model site, the one that was used in a full semester, and check that everything is correct. And if not, please let me know. So then I can send an email to Student Affairs Office and make a correction. So if you have a doubt and you are not comfortable with your grade, then yeah, we can check it out those together. Okay. And well, this was how long the oh, this is still on. I was expecting that this uh, air server was off already, but not yet. So we'll see how is today's lecture and how is the recording and the streaming. But I will offer material in a Moodle size such the way that the recordings that I used last year lecture will be available because there were so many technical difficulties in the first three lectures that I don't think that we can really use them very well. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I need to take a look by myself, and then I will make a call. But the one thing that is important is that I need to look at the promises that I promised. Okay, this is what I asked from the written exam. I need to make sure that I'm fulfilling those promises. Okay, last week I mentioned that there are these summer positions available in the university and Lutz School of Engineering Energy Systems. And the way you can find these open position is that you just log into university website. So this is university website, and now I'm gonna convert. I'm gonna switch this to English. Let's see. Yeah, it's still going on. And now you need to select this to get to know us. And from here you can select game to work. Some problem, yes. You guys tried this already? Oh, this is not connected to internet any longer. Okay, so you got the time in 3 minutes, and then this was off. By the way, I sent an email to help desk, and I said, this place is like unbelievable. There's no way to deliver lectures in this place. I haven't heard anything from them. Hopefully, they will get back to me soon. Okay, so what I will do then is that I will convert to this system. Uh, I need to change this lecture settings. Okay, and then here is a browser. So let me go in the very beginning. So this is supposed to be available in the recording. So you select in English, and then here you selecting get to know us, and here you select came to how this is working like came to work for us, and then there is several choices, and you need to click here the open positions. And now when you click the open positions, the first one that is in the list is Flood School of Energy Systems Summer Jobs 2019 for students available now. And the application period ends in middle of February, so that's within a little more than 2 weeks. Okay, so you click this, and then you're good to go. Then you're ready to submit your proposal, and rest we will learn a little later. Okay, and then related to this topic, um, if you don't mind, I would like to devote one lecture in this class that is entitled as a carrier console. Just about the carrier console. In my perspective, what it really makes sense you to do in career perspective matters. And well, this is of course my opinion and what I've been learning from the career perspectives, and I would like to share that with you. And in kind of like part of that lecture, I would like to explain about how is a master thesis project. Some of you may already get started in a master thesis project, but if you haven't started yet, I believe that this will be something that is quite useful information for you. So, how that sounds? Career counseling. So 2 hours. I mean, 45 minutes plus 45 minutes. You on or you don't care about the career counseling? You're on. Good, because this is what I really would like to share with you. And of course, it's not just it's not pure facts, but it's something that I believe that it really makes sense to you to be aware of. A little, and if you're an international student, a little bit about how is a Finnish working culture. What is it they're expecting to see when they are hiring people to industry? Okay, so that will be, don't know when, but I think we need to have that sometime soon, maybe even in this semester. I mean this period. Okay. All right. So then let's move on. So this is my lecture today, and we'll see how it displays. Is there anyone can check like how it actually look? Or should I do it by myself? How is it recording? I mean, how is it streaming? Is it making it no good? Okay, but at least you guys can follow this. So what I will do is that I will actually click this option. What is this? Okay. All right, and then just here. Okay, I guess that this is the best that I can show today. For you, it looks all right for online, but this event is not so good. But I hopefully it's is it somewhat understandable. Did you check it? The streaming, or you did not? Okay, all right. So this is week number 5. This is our fourth lecture, and in this lecture we're gonna step into the role that is a finite element method. And yeah, I know that is not very good, but this is the best that I can do. Yeah, it's not very pleasant, but at least something, at least something. Okay, are you familiar with the finite element method? Because it's my understanding that at least you have some basic knowledge about what are the finite elements, how that can be used to solve the practical problems. I'm going to explain the finite element method, hopefully a little bit of different way that you're used to deal with the finite element method. So I'm going to look a little bit about like, okay, what is the inherent nature of the finite element method? And I believe that this is extremely important explanation in order to understand how is it we can combine the finite element method together with the multi-body system dynamics. That is our ultimate call of this explanation. So I really wanted to do it. This not just that you can understand the finite element method, but rather that you can understand what are the fundamentals to make it possible to combine finite element method and multi-body system dynamics. And that's going to be pretty much the main body of today's lecture. But prior to that, there's some stuff that I would like to summarize from the last week lecture, and then there's going to be a little bit of introductory part when I'm explaining the big picture about the flexible multibody dynamics. You know, flexible multibody dynamics is a one special area within the multibody system dynamics. And as the title implies, it is an area where you learn how to describe deformable bodies. Previously, we made the assumption that no matter how forces you impose in the body, there is no deformation whatsoever. And you know that that's not true in reality because if there is a lot of forces, if you find a really large forces, something like you can find here,
Of course, things will deform. There's no way that they can resist this big force. They will deform. This is what we're going to learn how they will deform. This is what we're going to learn today. Okay, well, short summary what we discussed last week. We looked at the Dynamit-Hartenbach 4x4 transformation matrix notations, and we concluded that this is a method that helps us to create the kinematics, robot kinematics, and it's based on four parameters, and the four parameters are listed here. So the four parameters are, first of all, the length of the arm, well, like if you consider conventional arm revolute joint at both ends, that's the first parameter. Second parameter is that how these revolute joints in both ends of the arm is rotated with respect to each other. Then D parameter is like how much uh, cylindrical joint is off. I mean how these two bodies are off from each other. And then the fourth parameter is the angle theta that shows how much they are rotated. So these are the parameters. You're collecting these parameters to each 1 to 4 by 4 transformation matrix representation, and you do the math, which means that you're summarizing these, multiplying these matrices together. This is how it looks. The beauty of the method is that if you get the new robotics or new kinematics that you need to solve, you basically need to find how are these four parameters to each one of the links. Once you get the parameters, then you simply do the substitution. So you're substituting these values to these 4 by 4 transformation matrix representation. That's it. That's if you have one link. If you have two links, you're going to have a second set of parameters for the second link. You do the substitution again, and the entire kinematics you can get by multiplying the matrices together. That's the idea of Dynamit-Hartenbach 4 by 4 transformation matrix representation. Last week, we looked at the one example, and in this one example, it was like this robotic arm, I mean, two robotic arms, this one and this one, that were coupled together via revolute joint. There was a revolute joint in this end, revolute joint here in the middle, and we looked like how are the parameters for that particular case. And these parameters were the ones that were listed in this, well, let me see, third and fourth column, or for three and four rows of this table or matrix. So these are the parameters related to this body, and these are the parameters related to this body. Now, just to show how it works, I have here one more body here that is kind of like assumed to be, very short body, and such that it allows this robotic arm to rotate it around its own axis, like this. Okay. Now, now it's not that simple to find the parameters any longer, because basically how I did this is that I created these coordinate systems. Based on the coordinate system, I'm able to define the parameters needed in a Dynamit-Hartenbach representation. Okay, this is a picture that shows like, okay, how is these parameters initially? So the length here, this is supposed to be the D here. I guess that I need to go to the previous slide to take a look, to take a better look. Okay, so parameters again are here is a length. So this is a here, and then this is a D, how much they're off. Then the twist is alpha, and this one theta is the rotation. Okay, so let's see how I create this matrix table. So the first part, the length, and I'm assuming that to be equal to 0. And how is that? Because I'm assuming this one here to be located as it is shown here. And then the angle alpha, which is this twist, is at 90 degrees, because see what I did. This coordinate system is rotated 90 degrees with respect to x-axis. So here is 90 degrees. The D here, how much they're off, is assumed to be L1, which is this one here, the length of the first body, and then the rotation will be theta 1. So I'm kind of twisting this arm with respect to other arms, and that's how I got this first row. Then the second row will be length will be L2, alpha, which is twisting, is going to be 0, d, which is how much they're off, will be 0, and the rotation again will be theta 2. And then following the same principle, this is going to be my third body, and it follows the same parameters than the previous body. Not so straightforward. It really takes a while to learn to play with these parameters. And that, by the way, is the most complicated component, the most complicated part of the 4x4 transformation matrix representation. But once you got it, then everything, or the rest is boilerplate. So it's quite straightforward. Okay, so that's just another example. More examples. There's quite a good amount of examples available in a textbook, or just when you Google the dynamic hyperpack. Okay, then we look how was three-dimensional multibody dynamics, and we concluded that is following the principle of planar multibody dynamics with the one difference. The one difference is related to this matrix T. And the matrix T is very important for us because it combines angular velocity vector and time derivative of rotational generalized coordinates. Remember, this was the trick we did. Angular velocity vector, you can get it by multiplying rotational parameters or rotational generalized coordinates or velocity generalized coordinates with the matrix T. And the matrix T really depends on what is your rotational parameter representation. If using Euler angles, then this actually defines the rotational sequence. If using Euler parameters, then it's going to be something a little different. But this is the kind of the concept that is a bit difficult to understand. And yet, I'm going to ask this in written exam. How can I ask this in a written exam? What could be a good question related to this? Any help? So is it like angular velocity vector is equal than velocity of generalized rotational parameters? True or false? Too simple. What could I ask? But that's a difficult question. No help this time. Okay, let me think. It should be something that is related to concept of T, somehow related to this concept. But I need to think like, how is that I can ask that? Okay, so that's the major difference between, maybe I can ask like, okay, what's the major difference in planar and spatial kinematics, multibody kinematics? Okay, so what's the major difference? This, because in a planar case, this is a scalar component, and this is a scalar component, that they are equal. But in a three-dimensional scale case, this is a vector of three components, this is a vector of three components, this is a matrix. That's the difference. Is that something that you feel that is a fair question? So, is it something wrong in my mic? Because I'm thinking that you don't hear me. So, oh yeah, I don't even need the mic, so you should actually hear me without the mic. There's something wrong in you hearing today, or you just don't want to play with me today? I want to play. Makes sense. Makes sense. Because, it makes sense because the last Monday was a too friendly environment in my mind. You already started to share your opinions about this and that, and it shouldn't be like that. The lecture should be like super official, tense environment, not, relaxed environment. So should we keep it this way? Official way. Good. Okay. So this is how the spatial multibody dynamics look like. And here the component, this is a mass matrix, and this is a quadratic velocity vector, which is a big mess. Why is a big mess? Again, simply because of the G matrix that is not identity matrix. But if you find a way to express, remember, if you find a way to express the generalized um, rotational parameters such the way that the T matrix end up to be identity matrix, that will be a big deal. That will be really something big. But if not, then this is what we have to deal with. Okay, then the details related to inertia component, the mass matrix, the component that is located here in the lower right corner of the mass matrix. We look at this one particular component and we concluded that these are the components that are called mass moment of inertia. And the mass moment of inertia is something that you're used to deal with. So these are the mass moment of inertia and mass product of inertia. Mass product of inertia, look, now I remember what they are. Mass product of inertia are located in off-diagonal locations. They may be positive or negative in their sign, depending how is a body reference coordinate system with respect to density distribution. Okay, and then finally we were able to express the equation of motion by using method based on Lagrange multipliers. So no, well, this is exactly the business like in the case of planar multibody dynamics. And without further ado, so let's look at the flexible bodies. And now be careful because what I will explain you next, I will ask in my next in-class quizzes. So as I mentioned, so we're gonna move to the world of flexible multibody dynamics, where we're gonna define how the body can deform. Okay, now why is that we do that? Well, of course, it looks awesome when you can see the body deformation, and it's something that is very entertaining. But of course, that cannot be the reason we do it because even if you're able to show your boss, look, there's a nice deformation, there's a vibration perhaps, and the different colors, no one cares because even how entertaining it is never going to be like movie or anything that is really entertaining. So it's never going to beat Netflix, no matter how hard you're going to work. So what is the reason then? The reason is that in order to get accurate models that are corresponding to reality, often there's a need to describe body deformation. That is just needed to make the models to be accurate enough. And if you ignore it, then the responses are not according to reality. So it's all about the accuracy. So accuracy is the reason to introduce the deformation. Okay? Can I ask that in my next in-class quiz? No, you can do it like because we don't speak, but we communicate like this. Can I ask it? So what's the reason they introduced the deformation? Accuracy. That's the reason. But I will not ask that. But I will ask something else. Okay. So now if that's the reason, then the obvious question is that okay, if that's the reason, when we actually supposed to model body as a flexible body, as a deformable body? Well, that is a difficult question. And regardless of all the efforts that you can find from the journal articles, there's no really good formula, no good rule of thumb or any good advices that tells you when you can actually model the body as a flexible body and when it is enough to model as a rigid body. It depends so heavily on different cases. So it's practically possible to say when the body is supposed to be a flexible body and when they're supposed to be rigid body. Of course, what you can do is that you can model a system with such that all the bodies are flexible bodies, and then you're moving them to be rigid body, and then you see when the changes, when the results started to change, and that's where you should stop. But people don't do that in practice. So what they do in practice, well, they use something that is called common sense, engineering sense. So if you think about that, there is a body that is very slender body, so it's very long and slender, and it's loaded by a large force. It's probable that the flexible actually makes an influence in dynamic performance. But still, there's no rules available when that actually happens. So in practice, when you do the practical modeling work, you can create the method by your own. So you can look at the body. So let's think about like this overhead projector. If it is needed to model as a flexible body or rigid body, you can measure by using your own technique. You can use this, doesn't really matter what you do. And then you say, yeah, it can be rigid, it can be flexible. There's no rules available. So that's what it is. So you just need to use your common sense or trial and error. Okay, makes sense. But that's what it is. So there's no rules available. Okay, so flexible bodies. Just a few observations. So in mathematical sense, all the bodies are flexible. So there is no such thing like rigid bodies. They always will deform. But when the deformation makes an effect to dynamic responses, that's up to your engineering knowledge. You need to make a call to decide if the deformation is large enough that is actually affecting the results. And if it is, then you just need to model as a flexible bodies. And if not, you make an assumption about the rigid bodies. Now, what we're doing in the modeling is that we are using the technique that is called discretization. Because remember what happened in the case of rigid bodies. I mentioned that the rigid body consists of infinite number of particles. So there's a million multiplied by million number of particles in the body. That will be the same in flexible bodies too. But there will be no way to describe all the particles with how they are moving with respect to each other. So what we need to do is that we have to use a method that is called discretization. That means that we're looking just a few points how they are moving, and we're looking at a few possible deformation modes, and we are just underlying, and we're just hoping that it's enough accurate to describe things in reality. Okay, so my next first in-class quiz is this. When the body deformation needs to be accounted in a multi-body applications. So the options are when large forces are applied to system, when the natural frequency of the body is low, when a slender structure is considered. There's no general rule to make this decision. And now I'm gonna this one. Maybe it's better to not use this one, but you will use browser instead. Hold on, it's not yet on. So I need to log in again. So let me see if you can see my password. You can see that. Good. Okay, so it's on. So question again is when a body deformation needs to be accounted in multi-body applications. And the options are when large force is applied to system, when the natural frequency of the body is low, when a slender structure is considered. There's no general rule to make this decision. One option only is correct, others incorrect. But which one is correct? So I will get back to that in a second. So let me continue with my presentation. Okay, this is so it started here. Okay, so in flexible multibody dynamics, or area of flexible multibody dynamics can be categorized to two different fields. And those fields are, depending how large is a deformation. We can assume deformation to be small And that's the case when you consider like cantilever structure. Typically, when you look at the cantilever structures or cranes or something, and when that is the case, you make an assumption that the strain displacement relationship is linear. So let me explain. There are a few very important relations. And the first relation is related to maybe I can make a picture about this cantilever structure, which is loaded in a free end. So now how is the relation between the strain and displacement? So what is a displacement firstly? The displacement is something that is caused by a force. Now if the force is applying in a free end, this is how the deformation of the cantilever beam look like. So where's the displacement? That's the displacement. Let's call that as U. Now how is this relation to strain? That is the first important thing. And if this is a linear relation, then we are always speaking about the small deformation. If this is a nonlinear relation, then we are speaking about the large deformation as it is shown in this scenario here. Okay, those are the two differences. So it's all about how is the relation between strain and displacement. And that's what we're going to do here is we're going to focus on the small deformation. There are some methods available to look at this, and I'm going to explain them a little later to you, and I will be brief when doing that, because this is a quite challenging area, and it really takes a while to learn it in details. Okay, so the first thing that I will explain, the first method that I will explain is the one that you're already familiar with. So it's a method based on the lamp masses, and as the title implies, the idea is simply to replace the one rigid body by number of rigid bodies. And then what you're going to do between these rigid bodies will be the stiffness elements. So those will be the springs that introduce the stiffness to all the 6 degrees of freedom of the system. Very straightforward, and it can be used for beam-like structures. The beauty of the method is that it only uses the theory from the rigid multibody dynamics. Just mass is mass matrix is the only one that will be increased because there will be more bodies than in case of rigid body, and externally applied forces will be the spring forces that are needed in order to model this using the lump mass approach. This is how it works. So it's based on relative displacement. So it's all right method, and it can even capture the large deformation when you have enough these elements. Problem in this method, there's a few examples like showing how it's being used in the past, and definitely when you look at this video here, you can recognize that this is method that was valid say 20 years ago. And it was valid at that time, but is no longer used frequently. It is still used in certain special cases, like in case of wire ropes, which are very difficult to model by using any other methods. But basically, other than this special application, is not used any longer. And it's not used any longer because the method comes with the one big problem. And the one big problem is related to numerical stiffness. Have you ever heard this term, numerical stiffness? Never before. Okay, that's what I will ask next. So that will be my next in-class quiz. So would you like to pay attention when I'm explaining that to you? Okay, so numerical stiffness means that there's a system with very high frequencies and very low frequencies, and they are separated significantly from each other. So what that means? So it means that if I'm first, for example, when I'm maybe let me make a drawing here. If I have a system that is consists of two masses and two springs. So the first spring and the mass is something that the spring is not so strong and the mass is very large. This is associated with the system where the frequency is probably very low. You following me? Okay. This is combined with another spring, such the way that this spring is very stiff, like this, and that the mass is this much, very small mass, very high stiffness. Okay, what it means, if I introduce the force here, if I say impulse force here, when I look at the response look in time-wise something like this is time, and this is, let's say, the displacement of this guy here. The displacement look like this. Maybe not that much. Let's make it more realistic, like this much. This is how it looks. Okay, makes sense. It's dominated by this subsystem, which there is a large mass, very soft spring. All right. But when you look at this curve carefully, when you make a magnification of this particular location here, and you look, how is actually the response? And if you look at that very, very carefully, you will recognize that actually this mass here and this spring here makes a little bit of contribution to the response. And it looks actually like this. This frequency is related to this subsystem. This frequency here, this big picture, is related to this other subsystem. Okay, so where's the problem here? But the problem is that, numerical integration technique is capable to recognize this very high frequency. It's capable to recognize that, okay, something is going on with a very high frequency, and is tuning all the steppings and all the error tolerance such the way that this can be computed accurately. But do we really need this information? Not necessarily. Probably we are not at all interested about this, but integrator don't know it. It cannot differentiate what's important, what is less important. And it will tune everything based on this vibration. And this is what is called stiff system. And the stiff system, when you make a test a line here, which is a frequency, here, when you look at the frequency of this subsystem, this is where zero is located. It's probably here, say like 5 hertz. All right. This one here is located here, 1000 hertz. So the difference is huge. And then the creators can see the 1000 hertz and is setting all the steppings and everything according to that. It makes computing very slow. That's what is called numerical stiffness. Do you think that I can ask that in a class quiz? Again? No need to repeat it? Okay, so where's a system that is numerically stiff? Here's a numerically stiff system. When you look at the frequencies associated with this state, there's very low frequencies that is associated to bending. Easy, no problem whatsoever. I can easily do this. So the frequency is like, okay, I don't know how much, but low, very low. You can easily see that. But what about the high frequency? Axial vibration. If I stretch this like, you see that? Let me put it back, like this. So you really need a lot of forces to make that happen. How is the frequency associated to that? No, that's not a good example, but very high comparing to this bending. So this already is a system when you look at all these possible deformation modes that are bending and axial deformation is a stiff system. Many of the practical applications you're facing the problem with the stiff systems. Okay? So here are the examples. These are the kind of like good things related to this method and the bad things too. So easy implementation, easy to use, simple theory. Material damping is simple. We will get back to that damping a little later, not perhaps today, but next Monday. It can be applied mainly for beam-like structures, computationally expensive because of the stiffness. Stiffness always slowing down the computing. Of course, there is a integration methods that can handle the situation this better than conventional integration method. but it's always a bit of the problem. So if you can avoid step systems, please do so. Okay. My question is this: numerically step system means that system contains low and high frequencies. That system contains high frequencies. That all bodies are assumed to be rigid. That some of the bodies are assumed to be flexible. Four choices, but let's look at how was let me see. Where is it now? This one. Okay. How is the success rate of this one? The first one. No, no, you need to say a number. 90. Any other questions? Ah, quite good. Quite good. So let me see. 86% was saying that there's no general rule to make this decision, and that is the correct answer. You know, slender structure is in consideration. Yes, often, but really no general calls to make or general rules to make that happen. When large forces are applied to system, maybe large forces, but the system can be super rigid too. So you cannot really make that decision. So let's look at the next. What do you say about this? Numerically step system, what that means. And again, the options are that the system contains low and high frequencies, system contains high frequencies, that all bodies are assumed to be rigid, that some of the bodies are assumed to be flexible. Some of the bodies. Let me emphasize, some of the bodies. Some of the bodies. Okay? Which one is correct? How is going to be the success rate this time? 100. Yes, it will be 100. So let's wait a couple more minutes. You guys all entered your answer. Okay? When you're entering your answer, look at this picture. Okay, 6. You know, there may be multiple entries. So whenever you're locking twice at the system, you know, is maybe unable to, or maybe just so that there are more students that there is actually students. So how many answers were in a previous case? I don't remember that any longer. Did you guys all done? Oh, so can I go? Okay. So the question is this: who is voting for 100% success rate? Who is voting for? Well, that's it. That was the only information that I needed. Okay. So now there's 86% that was saying that the system contains low and high frequencies. That's what it is. Remember? So it's what? Yeah, the result is still same, but some criticism from the back row. So what is a criticism? That the system contains high frequency. Yes, but that's not the problem, because if there's only high frequencies, that's all right, because then the integrators can tune itself to handle the high frequencies. But if there's high frequencies plus low frequencies, that's when you are facing the problem. Only in that case. Because if you have, say, if this is well, all the frequencies are located, you don't have this, but instead, all the frequencies are located here. Fine. That will be no problem whatsoever. The integrators can tune itself to handle these frequencies fine. But if there's one frequency off, say here, this is where things becoming difficult. That's what the step system means. Okay? So there is some no doubts. Clear? Make sense? Okay, then what we're gonna do next is that we're gonna move on and discuss about here about the floating frame reference formulas. This is where I'm really combining the information from finite element method to multi-body system dynamics. And when I do this combination, this stiff system will be pretty much all the time in our problem. This system where there's this low frequency and high frequencies, and then it's very important to understand, which one are the most important in terms of reality. And that is difficult call, but that's what we're gonna log. And now, what we're gonna do, just shortly, we kind of try to combine the many different information into one package. Remember in our courses that was is there something like vibration course? No, I don't think so. There's like mechanics to it. But oh yeah, but that's a master level course. That's a difficult one. You guys already passed it? Oh, so then you can teach me. Okay, that's great. So then later when we are approaching, I'm gonna come and sit there, and you will jump up and you explain how things will be actually. All right? Okay, but I'm asking like a bachelor level course where you learn about vibrations, just 1 degrees of freedom vibrations. Is that that's a mechanics or vibration, basic vibrations. We combine that information, and then we can extend that a bit to multidimensional vibrations. So we're gonna look at the natural frequencies, and we're gonna look at the deformation modes associated to natural frequencies. You know, just maybe I did not explain this carefully, but this is a system that consists of kind of like, vibration wise, this consists of 2 degrees of freedom. So this system, if you look at the frequency content of the system, it consists of 2 different frequencies. The one that is associated with this subsystem, another one that is associated with another subsystem. So there's going to be 2 natural frequencies. How is that? What these 2 natural frequencies means? So it means that there are 2 different deformation modes that the system has. And those are the very important to understand already this time, because what we will do is that we're going to look at the deformation modes. This will be the very fundamental when we are speaking about floating frame reference formulas. And that's what we're going to get started today. And we'll continue next Monday to wrap up this topic. Okay, but now, floating frame reference formulation, you know, the idea is simply to combine the key things from the multi-body system dynamics. And obviously, the multi-body system dynamics is very strong to describe large relative translations like this one and relative rotations. And the rotation can be any magnitude you want. That's where the multi-body system dynamic is very strong. And that's where we're going to use the multi-body system dynamics. So we're going to describe large translation, large rotation with help of multi-body system dynamics. Then we're going to describe small deformation, that is superimpose these relative translations and rotations with help of finite element method. Finite element method is very good if you look at the system like cantilever structure, and you look at how is a displacement, how is a deformation due to the forces. Finite element method can easily solve that problem. But it's not very good to solve large rotations, or, well, translations are not really a problem, but large rotations are a little difficult to deal with finite element method. So that's why we're using the finite element method to describe the deformation, and the reference motion comes from the multi-body system dynamics. Now, how is this going to be happening? So we're going to use a finite element method. In a finite element method, we are discretizing the system to small pieces, and these small pieces are called elements. The more we adding elements, the more accurate results we're going to get. So that's the kind of like inherent nature of the finite element method. So finite element meshes, which is the collection of elements, they're looking like a fishing net. So there's a lot of different small pieces. Each one of them are like partial solution. when we combine these partial solutions, we get more and more accurate final responses. That's how it goes. Okay, so now we're going to use something that is called modal reduction or coordinate reduction approach. That's what we're going to use. And that exactly is the trick that we're going to move to look at the assumed deformation modes. So what are the possible deformation that takes place? And those we will describe with help of natural frequencies and associated natural deformations. Okay? But this time no need to have a really deep understanding about that topic because we will get back. So again, so here's a kinematic wise, this is how the concept goes. So we have here the reference coordinate system that is floating with the body. This is very difficult to understand this time. What it means that something is floating with the body. So it's not the rigid connection, but it's floating connection. What that means, I need to get back to that later. But this is what is describing the large reference translation and rotations. And then we have here a particle, just a few particles we are looking at. And the deformation, which is a U-bar, that's the one that shows how the deformation takes place. This one we're going to describe by using a finite element method. Okay? And in the finite element method, the equation of motion looks more or less like I have here this flexible body, mass associated the flexible body, and that this is the velocity, the acceleration of displacement. Here I have a stiffness matrix, which is very fundamental in finite element method. This describes how is deformation properties of the structure. This is related to displacement, and these are the forces that are applied to this flexible body. And this is combined with the multi-body system dynamics as shown here. And now let me take a look. Here a few examples. This is a connection rod. This is a three-dimensional crankshaft system. These are the basic tests we carried out when flexibility was introduced in VEA software. This is a crankshaft. The connection rod is a flexible body. There's a translational joint, and these are just a few examples where the floating frame reference formulation is used. It actually is the most dominant method at the moment. So whatever you wanted to describe the flexibility, you're combining finite element method and multi-body system dynamics together. All right, so next, we're gonna go and take a look at the finite element method. But before that, we will have a break. So let's have how long you need? What? 2 hours is not possible. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes.